Hi everyone, welcome in to the PokerGO studio. This is the Big Blind. I'm Jeff Platt here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are bringing you the ultimate test of knowledge on all things poker, Vegas, and gambling related. Let us introduce you to the three contestants in this first round matchup. First up, you heard him, you saw him. As part of our World Series of Poker coverage this year, he final tabled the 10K Deuce to 7 event. He was a part of the broadcast team for the 50K Poker Players Championship, and of course you know him as one of poker's top rappers. Prahlad Friedman is here. Prahlad, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Thank you for joining us. So our next contestant knows a thing or two about the music business as well. He also knows a thing or two about poker. Music supervisor for Entourage, for Ballers, for Shooter, among others. Also has more than 600K in live tournament earnings. Scott Vener in the mix today. Hey Scott, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for joining us and rounding out our group, coming off an incredible run in the greatest poker tournament in the world. Fourth place finisher in the 2019 World Series of Poker main event. We think he still works for PokerStars, but with that $3 million, we're not sure. Taxes, backer, we'll see. Let's say hello to Garry Gates. Hey, Garry.
What's up, guys? We got one of poker's best rappers and one of poker's worst rappers right here.
It's the perfect combination. Maybe we'll put you guys on the spot later in the show, and Scott will be a great judge of who has the best rap. All right, our three players today start with 10,000 in chips. We use a limit hold'em betting structure before our pre-flop action begins. Players will see the hand's category. They then can base their betting on their confidence level in that category. Levels 1 and 2 consist of trivia questions in that topic. We will have a question on the flop, we will have a question on the turn, and we will have a question on the river. Those questions get progressively more difficult. Now, once you send in your answers, we'll open up another betting round. If you know the answer, it might be wise to bet or raise. If you don't know the answer but think a bluff will get through, it might be wise to bet or raise. If two or more players remain in the hand after the turn, we will go to the river, which will always be set up as a tiebreaker question. Level 3, you'll get a chance to bet up to all of the chips you have accumulated against the house. More on that later. This is a round 1 matchup. If you win today or if you finish in second, you're on to our quarterfinals. You make it all the way to the finals, you are in the money. You win the finals, you take home $15,000. Second place, 10K, third place, 5K. So we felt like we needed to put something else on the line for our outright winner today. And wait till you see what we have in store. They call it the Talking Poker Pal. The ultimate card guard, definitely the least annoying card protector you could possibly have. Listen to this.
Wow.
You're not the big blind. You're the big stupid.
And he even knows the title of our game show. I'll play this.
Did anyone order pizza?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna put this guy down for now. Thanks so much to this poker bro or pal or whatever. So, all right, Daniel, hit the music. Here we go. Level 1, the blinds are 100, 200. That means you can bet 200 on the flop, 400 on the turn. Garry, we will let your run good continue. You have the button. Prahlad is in the small blind. Scott's in the big blind. Let's take a look at our first hands category. That category is famous prop bets. Garry on the button. You can raise, call, or fold.
I think I'll raise here.
Going to raise it up. Prahlad in the small blind. You can raise, call, or fold.
I'll call.
Prahlad is going to make the call on to Scott in the big blind. You can call, raise, or fold.
I'll call.
He will call. So let us see our flop question. Which poker and Instagram personality won $600,000 by riding a bike from LA to Vegas in under 48 hours? Send in your answers, please. About a 1-hour plane ride, 4-ish hours in the car, less than 2 days on the bike for this person. Who is it?
Do I get bonus for knowing who lost the money?
No, absolutely not. There are 0 bonus chips awarded on the flop question of our very first hand. All right, our answers are in. Prahlad, since you are in the small blind, you are first to act. You can check or bet.
I'll check.
He's going to check it over to Scott. Scott, you can check or bet.
I'll check.
He will check it over to Garry on the button.
This is the tightest game I've ever sat in, guys. What's going on? Let's bet. Let's bet.
Or maybe they're trapping you. The bet from Garry on the button. Prahlad in the small blind. You can call, raise, or fold.
I'll call.
He is going to make the call. Scott.
I'll raise.
Scott, well, it was a trap. The check raise from Scott. Back to Garry on the button.
We'll go ahead and put in a third bet.
Ooh, 3-bet. Back to Prahlad in the small blind.
He looks nervous.
Am I allowed to change my answer?
No, sir. The answers are locked in.
I just want Prahlad to know if he doesn't know the answer to this question, my respect for him goes up.
I guess I have to fold.
You will fold. That would have been a 6 spot to cap it. Scott, action is on you. You can raise, call, or fold.
I mean, I'll raise.
Gonna raise it up. Going to cap it. Gary, I'm just guessing that you were going to call versus
Yeah,
fold.
we'll toss in the call chip. Let's chop up that Prahlad money.
Let's take a look at the correct answer. That correct answer is, yeah, it's Dan Bilzerian. Won that $600K from Bill Perkins after completing the trip in just 33 hours. A little bit of controversy that Bilzerian was using his film crew's van to draft off of. That van was removed partway through the ride. So first, let's look at Prahlad's answer. It was smart of Prahlad to fold because he said it was Brian Rast, who I believe was maybe involved in the bet in some form or fashion. We go on to Scott. Scott had Dan Bilzerian. That is correct. Garry Gates had Dan Bilzerian. That is also correct. So Prahlad out of this hand. Scott and Gary move on to the turn. Let's take a look at that turn question. In 2017, Mike Norrie lost a prop bet with over $200,000 booked by failing to eat over $1,000 worth of food in 36 hours or less. From what restaurant? Answers, please. Norrie had made some wagers at 5-1 odds on this prop bet. And our answers are in. So we will start with Scott here. Scott, you can check or bet 400.
400.
Going to make that bet of 400 onto Gary on the button. He says raise it up. Ramping up the action early on here. Back to Scott.
I raise.
Scott will 3-bet it. Back to Gary on the button.
I mean, let's raise. Why not?
Going to cap it once again. The flop has been capped. The turn has been capped. Back to Scott. Scott, guessing you will call here.
Call.
He will make the call. Before we see what our player said, let's take a look at what the correct answer is. That answer is McDonald's. Norrie made it through about $95 worth of food before he threw in the towel. All right, who had Mickey D's? Scott said Mickey D's. Gary said Mickey D's. Both of them get it right. Both of them move on to the river. Let's take a look at that river tiebreaker question. In 2019, Rich Alati won how much money from Rory Young for staying in solitary confinement for 20 days in a dark bathroom of an Airbnb in Henderson, Nevada? Send in your answers. He won how much money from Rory Young? Alati was warned by countless people of the danger to his mental health in taking the bet. He takes it anyways and he wins some money, but how much money? All right, our answers are in. Before we look at what our contestants weighed in with, let's take a look at the correct answer. That answer, $62,400. Remember, there was a buyout. In interviews after the bet, Aladia said that he had some early hallucinations, but in the end, his mind proved strong enough to overcome his opponent, Rory Young, and Young negotiated an early buyout on that original 30-day $100K bet. Let's see what our players weighed in with. Scott said $100K. That was the size of the bet, but
wow.
we were asking for how much money he won. Gary said $100K as well. And we don't do this often on the big blind, but we do have a chop pot. I believe, Gary, you said let's chop up Prahlad's money. That's exactly what you two did on our very first hand.
Everyone loves a chop pot.
So it is Scott
out
at
to Joe and James.
10,300, Gary at 10,300, and Prahlad at 9,400. For this hand, Prahlad has the button. Scott is in the small blind. Gary is in the big blind. Let's take a look at this hand's category. That category is owners and operators. I will give you the name of multiple hotels. You tell me the person or company that owns those spots. Prahlad on the button, you're leading off our betting. You can raise, call, or fold. Prahlad, raise, call, or fold here. Yep.
Oh, call.
Going to make the call.
Pre-flop tanking right now.
Going to make the call over to Scott. Over to Scott in the small blind. Scott, you can raise, call, or fold.
I'll call.
He will call. Gary, you can check or raise.
I mean, I think I'm playing to win. Let's kick it up. I should know some of these. Let's go.
Another raise from Gary. He's feeling the action. He's felt it for a while since that World Series
That's
of Poker
too
main
good.
event. On to Prahlad. Prahlad, you can call, 3-bet it, or fold.
I call.
Going to make the call. Scott?
Oh,
Scott will make the call as well. Let's take a look at that flop question. Sands Macau and the Palazzo. Answers, please. The person or the company that owns Sands Macau and the Palazzo.
Oh my God, I'm having a total blank right now. I know this guy's name too.
When the music picks up, when the spotlight is on, Gary, it ramps up the pressure. Answers, please.
Oh my gosh. This is embarrassing. I know the answer to this.
All right, we are going to say that we're locked and our answers are in. Scott, you are first to act. You can check or bet.
I can't tell if he's bluffing by him what he was saying. I bet.
Scott is going to lead with a bet here on the flop. Gary?
This is absolutely embarrassing because I know the answer to this question and I'm having a brain fart. So I'm going to fold. I got to fold.
Probably a smart fold then in this spot. Prahlad.
I call.
Prahlad is going to make the call. Let us see the correct answer. That answer is, here's your name, Gary. Sheldon Adelson.
Come on.
Or we would have taken Las Vegas Sands. Adelson owns the Venetian, of course. I'm sure Prahlad's a big fan of Mr. Adelson for his stance on online poker. So we'll take a look at what our players had to say. Scott said Shelton, Venetian guy. We will not accept that answer despite how close he was. Prahlad said...
I said Sheldon.
Prahlad said win, and that is not
Yes.
correct. Gary, the celebration's a little premature because remember you folded, so you are out of this hand. But
That's fine.
Scott and
Wait, I need to put my
Prahlad,
glasses back on. I put Sheldon, I thought.
you put Shelton. I don't think we would have taken either one.
I'm mostly just happy because neither of them won significant shit here.
Okay, I got you, Gary. I see what you're saying. Well, Scott and Prahlad, after he does a little shimmy, will move on to our turn question. Let's see what that turn question is. The Orleans, Samstown, and Gold Coast. Send in your answers. Not the most popular spots here, but hey, Orleans, a lot of mixed game action. Gold Coast, right by the Rio, can hang there on breaks during the series. Samstown, I don't know. Never been to Boulder Highway. I hear it's quite lively though. And Gary, feel free to submit some answers. Just if you know them, you want to fire them off, you want to be involved in the game on this turn, you don't have to sit it out. All right, our answers are in. Scott, you are first to act. You can check or bet.
I bet.
He is going to lead with 400 on the turn over to Prahlad.
I call.
Prahlad is going to make a side call of sorts. Let's take a look at the correct answer. That is Boyd Gaming. Let's see what Scott had to say. Scott said Prahlad. Scott said Prahlad was the owner of the Orleans, Samstown, and Gold Coast. Fired the bluff on the turn. Prahlad picked that bluff off. Prahlad said the win once again. Maybe he'll eventually get it right if he keeps firing the guess win. So that means both players get it wrong. Both players move on to the river. By the way, Garry Gates said, hi, Mom. Gary wanted to pass along that message. Let's go to our river tiebreaker question. How many casinos does Caesars Entertainment own and operate in Las Vegas? Answers, please. Now, this is not a trick question. We know Caesars was recently purchased by Eldorado Resorts, but Caesars Entertainment still stands for now. How many casinos does that company own and operate in Las Vegas? Answers, please. Closest to the correct answer will win this pot of 2,400 in chips. All right, our answers are in. Let's see what the correct answer is. That answer is 9. Caesar's Palace, Bally's, Harrah's, the Cromwell, Flamingo, the Link, Paris, Las Vegas, Planet Hollywood, and of course, the home of the World Series of Poker, the Rio. Who was closest to 9? Scott said 5. Not a terrible guess. The door is open for Prahlad. Can he get closer than 4 away from the correct answer? Prahlad said 5.
He won.
And just like that, we have back-to-back chop pots here on the big blind. Gary, sing it for us.
Everyone loves a chop pot.
God, that was beautiful. And we have had a chop pot 2 hands in a row. We're not going to love it, I'm going to be honest, if the chop pots continue. But taking a look at our chip count, Scott has a very slight chip lead of 10,500. Garry has 9,900 in chips. Prahlad has 9,600. So for this next hand.
No more folding here.
No more folding, he says. Scott has the button. Garry is in the small blind. Prahlad is in the big blind. Let's take a look at our third hands category. That category is Mob Vegas, when the mob was running the show here. Scott, you're on the button. You lead off our betting round. Raise, the snap raise from Scott. Over to Garry in the small blind.
Let's call.
Said no more folding, so he is going to make the call. Over to Prahlad. Prahlad, you can call, raise, or fold.
I call.
Going to make the call as well. We are 3-handed to this flop. Let's take a look at that flop question. This former mayor of Las Vegas made his name as the lawyer for a number of high-profile mafia clients. Answers, please. Notorious clients included Meyer Lansky and Tony Dayent. Spilatro, the vicious mobster portrayed by Joe Pesci in the movie Casino. 5 seconds. All right, our answers are in. Garry, you are first to act. You can check or bet.
We'll bet.
Gary's going to lead out here on the flop. Prahlad, the action is on you. Can raise, call, or fold. I love the tanking.
I will fold.
He will fold. His daughter Zaylee loves the decision in the background. On to Scott.
I can't believe I have to fold also.
He is going to fold also, so no matter what.
He lives in Vegas.
This hand, let's take a look at the correct answer. That answer was Oscar Goodman, the mayor of Las Vegas from 1999 to 2011, and now his wife is the mayor. Go figure. Garry would have gotten it. He said Oscar Goodman. Prahlad said Weinstein, whatever Weinstein that may be, and Scott said that Matt Salzberg was this former mayor of Las Vegas. Probably not. So again, Garry takes down that hand. Garry regains his chip lead. All right, that is a wrap for level 1. We race the stakes in level 2 next. Welcome back to the Big Blind. Taking a look at the chip counts. A tight bunch. Garry has 10,700 in chips. Scott with 10,100 in chips. Prahlad with 9,200 in chips. So it is anybody's game. Remember what is on the line. Our top 2 finishers will receive spots in the quarterfinals, and our first place finisher will win this lovely robot guy. They call him a talking poker power bro. Or
Sweet, one for the kid.
again, not annoying.
Yeah, now let me hear it from my fans.
Okay, gonna put this guy down for now. Again, thank you very much. I believe that's Ace, the talking poker pal, and I just dropped him on the floor, but who cares? So level 2, the blinds are 200, 400. That means you can bet 400 on the flop, 800 on the turn. Garry has the button to start off this level. Prahlad is in the small blind. Scott is in the big blind. Let's take a look at this hands category. Poker Masters, the high roller series that takes place every year at this very studio. Garry, you are on the button. You will lead off our betting. You can raise, call, or fold.
We'll call here.
Going to call. Prahlad?
Call.
Prahlad.
On me?
Prahlad will make the call. Scott, you can check or raise in the big blind.
Let's raise.
Going to raise it up. Action back on Garry.
I'll call.
Garry is going to make the call. Prahlad, back to you.
Call.
Prahlad will make the call as
Give it a
well.
call.
3-handed to this flop. Let's take a look at that flop question. What young player burst onto the high roller scene with 2 wins in the 2018 Poker Masters? 7 events. This phenom won 2 of them for more than $1.2 million combined. Answers, please.
Oh my God, I know who it is.
I can't think of it either.
Do these guys really know? Do they really not know? Are they bluffing? Do they have it? Hard to tell. Hard to get a read on these gentlemen. All right, our answers are in. Prahlad, you are first to act on this betting round. You can check or bet.
Check.
He's going to check it over to Scott.
Bet.
Scott is going to fire off a bet on the flop. Garry.
I'll call.
Garry will make the call. Prahlad.
I'll fold.
Prahlad with the hesitant fold. Let's take a look at what the correct answer is. Ali Imsurovic, who has gone on to just absolutely crush after winning that purple jacket. He has more than $5.5 million in career earnings. Prahlad, smart decision to fold. Wouldn't have gotten it right. He said young kid. That is correct. We move on to Scott. He said Randall Emmett's friend who wore the Fofty shirt on PokerGO, LOL. I mean, that is correct, but we did need a name. So the technicality there is that answer is incorrect. Garry Gates said not Prahlad Friedman. So since Prahlad folded, it's out of the hand. Scott and Garry will move on to the turn. Let's take a look at that turn question. Who won the first ever short deck event offered in the Poker Masters Series? Answers, please. Short deck, take the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s out of the deck, creating a decent amount of action. Very popular in the Asia high-stakes cash game world. Who won the first ever short deck event at the Poker Masters? Pot size of more than 3K in chips. All right, our answers are in. Scott, you will lead off this betting round. You can check or bet.
Bet.
Scott will lead with a bet on the turn for 800. Over to Garry.
I call your bluff.
Garry says, I'll call your bluff. Let's see what the correct answer is. It's Isaac Caxton. He beat Maurice Hawkins heads up to win $176,000. Garry said it was a bluff. Actually, from Scott, it was a bluff. He said Jason Kuhn, even though I know he won Triton. Garry had Bryn Kenny, a good bluff catcher, I guess they would say. Bryn Kenny was. So both of them get it wrong. Both of them move on to this river tiebreaker. Let's take a look at this question.
I had that one. Damn it.
Sorry, Prahlad.
Stop playing so tight.
David Peters took home how much money after winning the 2018 Poker Masters 100K main event? David Peters took home how much money after winning the 2018 Poker Masters 100K No Limit Hold'em main event? Answers, please. D. Peters beat Dan Smith heads up to win that title. All right, there we go. Our answers are in. Let's take a look at the correct answer. That answer is $1.15 million for David Peters. Before we look at what Scott and Garry said, let's look at what Prahlad said just for fun. Prahlad said $4.5 million. Just a bit off. What did Scott Vener have to say? Scott said $2.7 million, about $1.5 million off. Can Garry get closer than that? The answer is yes, he can. Garry says $1.25 million, a very good guess from Garry, just $100K off, and that gives Garry the win in our first hand of level 2. Garry extends the chip lead. Let's take a look at the chip counts. Garry has 13,500 in chips. Prahlad in second with 8,400. Scott in third with 8,100. Still anybody's game as we move to the second hand of our second level. Prahlad has the button. Scott in the small blind. Garry in the big blind. Let's take a look at this hand's category. Cirque Du Soleil, theatrical productions all across the world. Some high quality shows to say the least. Prahlad, you're on the button, so you will lead off our betting. You can raise, call, or fold.
Raise it.
Raise it up over to Scott in the small blind.
I call.
Scott makes the call. Garry in the big.
Let's call.
Says call. Three-handed to this flop question. What is it? Name one of the two founders of Cirque Du Soleil. Answers, please. Cirque Du Soleil founded in 1984 by these two former street performers. We just need the name of one. All right, our answers are in. Scott, you are first to act in this betting round. You can check or bet.
Bet.
Scott will lead with a bet on the flop. Over to Garry.
Let's raise.
Raise it up, Garry says. Over to Prahlad on the button.
Raise.
Prahlad into the tank. Comes up with a 3-bet. Over to Scott.
Call.
Scott makes the call. Back to Garry.
Let's cap it. Why
He
not?
says let's cap it. Over to Prahlad. Prahlad, you want to make the call?
Call.
Prahlad makes the call. Scott, do you want to make the call?
I do if spelling doesn't count.
That is correct. As long as we can get what you're trying to say, then we're going to accept this
I call.
answer. Let's take a look at the correct answer. We would have taken Guy Laliberte or Gilles St. Croix, the less famous guy, I don't know very French. Guy, of course, a big-time poker aficionado. He has provided safe drinking water to over 340,000 people through his one-drop charity. Let's see what our players had to say. Scott, he asked about spelling because he said Guy, Liberty, whatever, we'll take it. Yeah, that's good. Over to Gary. Gary said, Gary actually spelled it correctly too. We would give you bonus points. That's not allowed in this game, but congratulations for spelling it correctly. That is something that Prahlad Friedman did not do. Guy, Liberté, whatever, we'll take it. We know what you were going for. Everybody gets it right. Everybody moves on to this turn question. Which cabaret style Cirque Du Soleil show is intended for mature audiences only? Answers, please. Gotta be a little older to get into this show. One of the few Cirque shows I have not seen. Guess I just can't find a date. Very sad. All right, our answers are in. Scott, you are first to act on the turn. You can check or bet.
Check.
Going to check it over to Gary.
I think we'll bet.
Gary's going to fire a bet of 800 on the turn over to Prahlad.
Call.
Prahlad in the tank comes up with the call around to Scott.
Fold.
Scott will lay it down. Let's see what the correct answer is. Zumanity. You can catch that one at New York, New York. Maybe bring a date. Maybe don't. Don't go by yourself. That's weird. All right, checking in on what our players had to say. I got to start with Scott's answer, even though he's out of the hand. He said Pornhub. That is also intended for mature audiences only, but that is not a Cirque du Soleil show. On to Gary. Gary said Zumanity. You saw the fist pump. He got it right. Can Prahlad extend this hand to the river? Prahlad said the O show. That is, I mean, in some ways, yes, also intended for mature audiences, only based on that title. The show O is at the Bellagio. So Gary extends his chip lead even more, 19,100 in chips for Mr. Gates. Scott is in second with 5,700. Prahlad in third with 5,200. So for this hand, Scott has the button. Gary is in the small blind. Prahlad is in the big blind. Let's take a look at this hand's category. That category is famous poker scandals. Now the elephant in the room here is that the game we all know and love has had its fair share of shady characters and shady situations. Now we don't want to dwell on it, but it kind of makes for a good game show topic. We will leave Antigate out of this one, Prahlad, just FYI. Scott on the button leads off our betting. You can raise, call, or fold.
Raise.
He's going to raise it up over to Gary in the small blind.
I'll call.
Gary will make the call. Prahlad in the big blind. You can raise, call, or fold.
Call.
Prahlad is going to make the call as well. We are three-handed to the flop. Let us see that flop question. What is the term for the type of account created by discredited 1994 WSOP main event champion Russ Hamilton in order to scam players on the Ultimate Bet platform? Answers, please. There are a couple of acceptable answers here. Good old Russ Hamilton. Quite the class act, just scamming people out of cash. That's what the man did.
Not fair. Prahlad definitely knows this answer.
That is a decent point. Prahlad might have been a victim of this.
Fuck.
Categories are drawn at random. Answers, please. All right, our answers are in. Gary, you are first to act. You can check or bet.
Let's bet.
Going to lead into Prahlad. Prahlad
I will raise.
goes into the tank, comes up with a raise around to Scott.
Fold.
Good fold. Scott said the Phil Hellmuth, by the way. So he lays it down. That's a good fold.
Who's better than Phil Hellmuth?
Over to Gary.
I'm just going to call.
Just going to call. Let's take a look at our correct answer. That answer
Pot-
is...
pot control.
We would have taken super user. We would have taken God mode. Let's see what Gary weighed in with. He did say super user. That is correct. Prahlad did say super user. That is correct. Sorry to bring up those bad memories, Prahlad. We sent Prahlad into full tilt mode, I'm sure. But Prahlad and Gary get it. Gary and Prahlad are on to the turn. Let's take a look at that turn question. What is the name of the advantage play that Phil Ivey used to win millions of dollars in Baccarat at the Borgata? Answers, please. Now, this play is technically not illegal, that didn't stop Ivy from getting sued? Answers, please. All right, our answers are in. Gary, you are first to act once again. You can check or bet 800.
We'll bet 800.
Going to bet 800 into Prahlad.
Raise.
Prahlad going to raise it up here. Gary.
We'll call. We'll call for pot control.
Like you said, trying to control the size of the pot. Let's go ahead and see the correct answer. That answer is...
Tournament player.
That answer is edge sorting. Ivy lost in the courts, was hit with a judgment to pay back $10 million to Borgata. Who got this one right? Gary said edge sorting. That is correct. Prahlad says edging. Our judges have weighed in, and they said that they will take that is also correct. Gary was so ready to go thumbs down on that one, but we're going to flip that one to thumbs up. So both Gary and Prahlad get it right. Scott had it right, by the way, so shout out to him. Gary and Prahlad will move on to our river tiebreaker. Let's see what that question is. After getting shut down by the Department of Justice on Black Friday, Full Tilt Poker had only $60 million in their company accounts, while their players' accounts totaled how much money? Answers, please. Who knew poker players running the show could be so bad with cash? Closest to the correct answer will win this pot of $7,200. Prahlad, the short stack at this moment, 2K in chips. Gary has a little under 16K behind. All right, our answers are in. Before we see with what our contestants weighed in with, let's take a look at the correct answer. That answer is $390 million. Who was closest to $390 million? Gary said $420 million, a pretty good guess, just $30 million off of the correct answer. Can Prahlad get closer than that? The answer is, well, the answer is no, because he got exactly that close. Prahlad said $360 million, and somehow, some way, we have our third chop pot on this episode of The Big Blind.
I almost said 400, too. I almost said 400.
Sing it, Gary.
Everyone loves a chop pot.
He nails it once again. That is quite remarkable. So a chop pot between Gary and to Prahlad. That puts a halt to level 2. Our contestants go against the house with a spot in the quarterfinals on the line next. Welcome back to The Big Blind. Once again, let's take a look at the chip counts. Garry Gates on top of that leaderboard, 19,500 in chips. Prahlad Friedman in second with 5,600. Scott Vener in third with 4,900. It is a tight race for that second spot. And now it is time for you all to play against the house. Our players are taking their stacks from the poker table and entering the casino, firing in the pit. Now remember, our first place prize for today's episode is not only a spot in the quarterfinals, but this talking pal, the ultimate card guard, as the box says. What a treat it'd be to play next to you if you had this guy protecting your cards and saying this.
You're not the big blind. You're the big stupid.
I keep interrupting him, but we are the big blind, my friend. Thank you very much, Ace. That will do it for you. Now, while there's no actual prize like this talking robot poker pal bro thing, there is a really enticing prize for our second place finisher. They'll move on to our quarterfinals. Now, our players have the option to wager as much or as little of their stack as they so choose. After that wager is placed, they will see a video featuring a hand from a tournament and a multiple choice question on what action will be next. So, gentlemen, please send in your wagers. Gary has up to 19,500 to wager. Prahlad has up to 5,600 to wager. Scott has up to 4,900 to wager. All right, our wagers are in. Let's take a look at this hand from Super High Roller Bowl 3.
Kenny with a pair of sixes, a double gutter.
Betting into the best hand, which is the ace-10 of Ben Tollerine.
Betting into the best hand is true.
And Tollerine's been really snug. We haven't seen him do anything too splashy.
He's been very involved, but nothing super out of the ordinary.
Right.
Correct. He's
Not
played
venturing.
a lot of hands in in a somewhat standard fashion.
Yeah.
You know.
And the river producing another 10, improving Tollerine's best hand to trip 10s and potentially tempting Kenny with his 6.
I think Kenny is often going to check here. Often going to, well, always going to face a bet when he checks. And this is a reasonable hand to consider check raising. And that is something that Kenny certainly might find himself doing. And that intensity in his gaze on this river, I think, is considering not only all of the combinations of hands that Ben can have, and we sort of caught up to the action here a little late, but just looking at it now, Bryn blocks 6 full. He has a 7, which is relevant for 2 straights, and you do want to be check raising these rivers sometimes with hands like this, sort of in the middle of your range with relevant blocker potential. He has no hearts, but raising is possible from Bryn, as is calling, as is folding. Let's see how it plays out.
All right, Bryn Kenny against Ben Tollerine. What does Bryn Kenny do in this spot? Does he fold? Does he call? Or does he raise? Send in your answers, please. Tollerine rivers, trip 10s. Kenny checks. Tollerine fires. What does Bryn do here? Does he fold? Does he just call with a 6? Or does he turn his hand into a bluff and raise? All right, our answers are in. Let us see how this hand plays out.
68.
A quick glance over at Ben. He does make it 68, and Ben is going to call. He's very high up in his range, and this hand's just too good. Does Ben ever re-raise with the 10? I don't think so. I think this is a am I going to call or not scenario, and I believe he is. This is Bryn Kenny we're talking about, one of the most aggressive, creative,
Yes.
and talented players
Certainly
on the
at
circuit.
this table.
Certainly at this table or anywhere, and I think Tollerine is simply going to call. Ben would bet quite a bit of stuff that's worse than this.
10 seconds.
He's rather high up in his range. I'd be surprised to see him lay it down, but he does. But he does. Bryn Kenny. I mean, it's easy to call from the booth. We know this, Ali. I see Bryn's hand. I'm beating him in the pot. It's not that easy when you're out there.
He shows the 6-7 of spades.
How about that? Bryn Kenny taking it to the streets with the check raise on the river and got the fold also. Ben, if you're watching, nice fold. Nah, I'm just kidding. You're awesome. Time to check out what our contestants said and how much they wagered. We look at our shortest stack first. That is Scott Vener. He started this hand with 4,900 in chips. He says raise. Raise is correct. And he wagered all of the chips, 4,900, the full double up for Scott. That moves him up to 9,800 in chips. On to Prahlad Friedman. We take a look at his answer. Prahlad said call. That is incorrect. How much did he wager? 4,201. He would have just barely eclipsed Scott by 1 chip if he had the correct answer. Unfortunately, he was incorrect. That drops him down to 1,399 in chips. Well, we know we've kind of removed the drama from the actual winner, but let's still go ahead and look at Gary's answer. Gary said raise. That is correct. Gary wagered 3,956, so he has 23,456 in chips to close out this game. That means Garry Gates is our winner. Congratulations, Gary. Gary, are you just never going to lose anything again?
Let's keep this going, guys. I will. If we win this whole thing, I'll take you the little chip protector guy, and I'll use it every tournament I play the rest of the year. Let's do it.
Wow, I'm sure your opponents will be absolutely thrilled. Congratulations, Gary, and congratulations to Scott. Scott, you are in second place. That means you move on to our quarterfinals. Prahlad, I have to say goodbye, but I also must say thank you very much for playing. We loved having you.
Thank you. Very
I will
much.
Good game,
bow
buddy.
as well. We loved having
Good game,
you. We
guys.
loved having Scott. We loved having Gary. It is Garry Gates who conquered all. It is Garry Gates who takes home this wonderful Talking Poker Pal. Thank you so much to our contestants. Thank you so much to you, the viewer, and thank you to our crew. I'm Jeff Platt. We will see you next time on The Big Blinds.